Welcome to a basic introduction to mechanical ventilation. This is chapter 2.1, Compliance. A very important concept for you to understand in mechanical ventilation is compliance. Throughout this series of lectures, we're going to be talking about the relationship between pressure and volume. Now, this relationship we call compliance. Mathematically, it is shown as this. But in English, it means that compliance is a change in the volume for a change in an amount of pressure delivered. Graphically, you can consider the compliance curve to look like this. Now, on the flat part of the curve, you can see that the volume increases, but there's not really a very significant change in the amount of pressure experienced by the system. We would consider this the compliant part of the curve. But then on the opposite side, when you look at the steep part of the curve, you can see that a small increase in the volume results in an actual very large increase in the amount of pressure delivered. So this is what we would call the non-compliant part of the curve. Now, to better understand this, imagine blowing up a balloon. As you start to inflate the balloon, you can feel that the balloon is initially not very compliant. It takes a lot of pressure in order to get the balloon to start blowing up until it reaches a certain threshold. Once it reaches that threshold, suddenly it seems like you don't need nearly as much pressure in order to start blowing up the balloon and inflate it, as the balloon rubber has now crossed a threshold and has become much more compliant. As the balloon continues to fill, you don't need as much pressure, but you can get an increase in volume with that smaller amount of pressure. However, once the balloon is almost completely filled, it really can't increase its volume anymore without putting in an awful lot of extra pressure in order to try to get that volume in, until you reach a critical threshold where the balloon pops. Now compare this to a balloon that has already been blown up before, and you'll notice that the compliance of the balloon is a lot higher, and it takes a lot less pressure in order to blow up the balloon to the same volume. So to summarize, compliance is an important concept to understand in mechanical ventilation. It is the relationship between the volume and the pressure, and is an important part of many aspects of pulmonary physiology. Simply put, compliance is the change in volume for a change in amount of pressure delivered. If you think about a balloon being blown up and understand how the balloon changes its compliance as it's filling with air, you understand the essentials of compliance.